Well, good morning, church.
Good morning, Joe.
So, we're going to be doing Daniel chapter 5. If you're visiting with us today, we'll be doing a Daniel series. And it's amazing how many modern expressions come out of the book of Daniel. Now, some of these expressions you may not know, and some you may know. But the expression to being lion fodder comes from Daniel, because he was fed the lions, as we will find out. Even the expression eat grass, which you thought was a rugby expression when you fell over and ate grass, actually comes from Daniel. This one is, have you seen the writing on the wall? And that's what the whole of Daniel, you go, I've never heard of that. Well, okay. I grew up with the song by Hazel O'Connor going, have you seen the writing on the wall? Anyway. Yeah, right,
Come on, Joe.
But have you seen the writing on the wall? This expression, which we will go into, comes from this passage. But as with all the other lessons, I've broken it down into 3 characteristics and a characteristic of Daniel. And today the title is Daniel, a man of great conviction. Daniel, a man of great conviction. And let's be honest, we are in a world that lacks conviction. Without doubt. It lacks conviction about so much so that when people come along with wrong convictions, people follow them because at least they have some conviction. Which is really sad.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. And I believe many people turn to false religious groups because they go, well, at least those guys are doing something. As opposed to the people that I believe have the truth but are hypocrites or have no conviction. So the title today is Daniel, a man of great conviction. We start off in Daniel chapter 5, verse 1. It says, King Belshazzar, remember this is not Nebuchadnezzar, we're now changing kings here, gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines, might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem. And the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines drank from them. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall, near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. An interesting situation. This king is like, you know, I'm the king of kings, I can do anything. And one moment, he is full of fear. So here we see, fast forward, we see the events of Daniel chapter 5 happen many years actually after Daniel chapter 4. It's past the end of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who we've been studying. And it's remembering that the book of Daniel actually covers his whole life. So right here, Daniel's about 70 years old. He's at the end of his life. Sometimes we go chapter to chapter, it's just like the next day. Actually, in context, it's a new king. It's a totally new situation. Archaeological records have shown that Belshazzar ruled Babylon as a co-regent with his father Nabonidus. Basically, he was the one that revolted. He had his father, and his father got really disinterested in actually leading the country. He went off to mysticism and different types of gods, so he left his son basically in charge. But his son Belshazzar was therefore the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. Soon after gaining his power, his father turned to this fascination, which left him in charge. So here we go, this expression, have you seen the writing on the wall? So what is happening here? There's a man who is coming and he's waking up that morning and he's going, I am on top of the world. I've got money, I've got power, I am comfortable and nothing can touch me. And then literally the hand of God comes into his life and he's petrified. He's totally petrified. That's what happens when you meet God. People that met Jesus were scared. They were either scared in a good way or scared in a bad way. You know, a preacher's job is to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. Well, here, God was definitely disturbing the comfortable. So Daniel 5 opens with this great banquet, And it's basically referred to as a big drinking party. As he drinks his wine, he gets pretty drunk. And we can assume that he's there bragging about, hey, aren't I great? Look at all the gods I've created, gods of gold. In other words, I created the gods. I am above God. He reminds everybody of the great victories, of the humiliation of the Jews and how they smashed them. And he even brings out these goblets that were taken from the temple of God. He goes, you know what? I'm going to use the holy things of God to get drunk. And God goes, I've had enough. You arrogant little man. That is the last straw. He was humbled in a moment. You know, life is incredibly, incredibly fragile. Yeah. One moment, it can happen. We've all had them. A near miss, by a car. You're driving in a car. I remember being in a car and one behind me and one behind, a big truck was coming. I thought, how am I going to get out of this? I put my brakes on, did this, and somehow I missed it. And you go, oh, that was a near miss. We've all had them in our lives. They're all warnings from God going, your life is fragile. Life is fragile. Even when the COVID first came out, I had one guy phone me up that I was reaching out to. And he goes, I've just had my test for COVID. They put this thing down my nose, and I believe they put the mark of the beast inside my nose. And the end of the world is coming. So I phoned him up a week later. I go, how you doing? I'm fine. But what was it? He was scared for that moment. He was like, I understand, I'm in touch with the reality of the world. You know, it was Belteshazzar's grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar, that had actually gone out and said, you know what? No one is to insult God. It is every generation's demise to not listen to their parents and their grandparents. It's amazing, the tsunamis in Japan, they always happen in the same place. But what happens is, they happen, and then people go, well, it wasn't that bad. And so the next generation goes, maybe we shouldn't build there. And then the next generation, 3 generations later, they're building a house there, and it happens again. Because people won't listen. You know, are you listening to the hand of God in your life today? His grandfather was the same one who declared to the world, those who walk in pride, God is able to humble. It's not he is able to humble, he will humble. Belteshazzar gives these orders to bring out these goblets. They're silver and gold. He's using the same vessels that were meant to worship God with. I think about our own lives. God created us. Most of you here believe that, otherwise you wouldn't have been here. Most of you here believe in God. He created you. You are his vessel. If you use your life to worship yourself, there will be consequences. If you use your life to worship God, there will be positive consequences. Actually, you know that. Deep down, everybody knows that. Everybody wakes up going, I should be doing what's right. That's why we have a conscience. He added insult. I imagine the Jews reading this account, just being furious at the fact that this man is so arrogant. God has finally had enough of this arrogant man. And he appears to Belteshazzar, and hey, the writing is on the wall for you. I have come in judgment. It's actually a judgment for all of his people. And that is the sad thing. When human beings don't react well to God's calling, it affects their wives or their husbands or their kids or their parents. All of us have lives that ripple to other people. You know, well, how do we get so arrogant? Very often, it's because God gives us time to repent. And we think that is us getting away with it. I remember Pete did a sermon, I don't know how long ago, 4 years ago. Always remember this analogy. He said, what happens is when sheep get herded to a cliff and they fall off it. The first few hundred that fall off die, obviously, because they fall off a cliff. But then there's this effect that there are so many dead sheep at the bottom of the cliff that the others fall off and literally bounce off the dead sheep. Bounce off and then just walk away. And so what they learn is that it's not dangerous to fall off a cliff. That's like us as humans. I remember getting a girl pregnant that wasn't even my girlfriend. Why did I get to that stage? Because I slept with so many girls before I was a Christian, and I just thought, well, I got away with it. I got away with it. And then at one time I slept with somebody and I didn't ask whether on the pill and stuff. She got pregnant, we had an abortion. That makes me a murderer. And we can just get arrogant when it comes to God. We go, you know what? My life isn't going that bad. Does that excuse our sin? No, it doesn't. It just shows the grace of God. Now, am I talking about Balthazar's life today, or am I speaking to you? Is the writing on the wall for your life from God? Sometimes there are really extreme cases of this. So, Kerry and I have a friend called Paul Daz, and he said before he was a Christian, him and his mate went out to sleep with 2 girls that night. I'll never forget this because it scared the life out of me. And he said we went out and we went to the separate girls' room and we slept with them. And they must have been in their own room, like own separate rooms. And in the morning, his friend woke up, went into the toilet in the bathroom, and on the mirror in lipstick was "Welcome to the life of AIDS." That's why I remembered that story 20 years later. That was literally the writing on the wall for him. Those moments are meant to do what happened to Paul. He went, right, it's time to become a Christian. That could have been me. Yeah, well, I don't like, talking about those scary things. This is the reality of the world. We want to live in the Facebook world. The Facebook world where nobody puts up a bad picture of themselves. You ever done that? Like you take so many photos of yourself just to make sure that even though you don't have a double chin, it doesn't look like you have a double chin. Or if you do have a double chin, somehow, miraculously, you take a picture where you don't have a double chin. That's the world we live in. Like we take 500 photos. Which one am I going to put up? You should put them all up because they're all you.